I have corrections from last week.
Okay.
I was saying Kane Hodder did a lot of the Friday the 13th as Jason. He only did 4
out of the 18 million.
Yeah, exactly. No, I was like, well, because I think it's just like he's so popularized as being Jason because he's the one that's been the most consistent. There was never anyone else that's played Jason multiple times except for him.
Okay, so the other ones had just some random.
They just only had a stunt guy, and he is a stunt guy. He's a stunt coordinator. But because of his legacy of playing Jason, he kind of got a little bit more. Like he's the
attached to it.
He's the killer in Hatchet 3, that movie that we were talking about that sounded kind of ridiculous and stupid.
Oh, that we wanted to, yeah, really? Yeah, okay.
So, yeah, I mean, he got his things with Jason. Yeah. I kind of want to just be like, hey, I was wrong.
That's good. I mean, there's been a couple times. There's been a couple times in the past that I've been like, that was not entirely correct.
No, there's actually been times where I'm listening back and I'm just like, did I really? What? I'm a fucking moron. Fuck me, man. Do you have anything to admit while we're doing it?
I can't think of any.
Yeah, that's fair.
Off the top of my head, but there have been times I was like, that was a little Snapple facty, It's not even it's not even like a lie. I was just really confident in my convictions.
No, exactly.
And you're like the power of misinformation. But yeah, it's like that wasn't entirely wrong, but 100% accurate.
Also, when we get into this episode, I looked up the differences between a remake, a reboot, and a revival.
Okay.
Because I was confusing, we're confusing a little bit of all that together.
Yeah, we were kind of, that was a rough end to that conversation.
And as I was listening to it last week, I was like, man, I'm just saying the same thing. I was like, I can I see my logic, hear my logic as I'm listening to myself. Like I can follow my logic because it's my logic, but also then re-listening to it, I'm like, this guy doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about.
This guy needs to shut the.
You ready to do this?
Yeah. This is Tommy.
This is Jacob.
This is Tommy and Jacob's mixtape. Welcome back, everybody.
They're all gonna laugh at you.
For our last episode of the spooky season.
Woo!
Wow, that went by fast.
Did it?
I mean, I was in Vegas for 5 of those days. So.
Yeah, and I don't know, just the beginning of this block was just kind of hectic.
So off the top, the movie we are discussing today does have themes and visuals of abuse, self-harm, bullying, all that kind of stuff, and we're going to be talking about that stuff. So if you...
I am so desensitized.
If you aren't into that... and I was also going to say, if you have never read or seen any of these movies, do not listen to this episode.
Yeah, that's kind of fair.
So,
but if I feel like everybody knows what happens in Carrie.
Oh, okay. So we're doing 2013's Carrie.
Yeah.
And I was watching it, and I had this realization, and it's one of those you only get to see this ending once kind of thing.
Yeah.
So if you really have missed this, then read it or watch one of them. Even watch this one. I don't care.
Read it. Actually, read it. I started reading the book. I got the you get the first 20 pages preview online. Dude, the book is interesting.
So yeah, if you haven't had any exposure to this storyline, I would really recommend don't listen to this because we're going to talk about the ending, and it's like Fight Club. It's one of those endings you only get to see once.
It's like The Ring.
Yeah, so it's cool.
It's like once you know, you know.
Yeah, so yeah. So we're doing 2013's
Carrie remake. Technically, it is a remake.
Okay. Are we sure about that?
I am sure. This came out excuse me. This came out October 7th of 2013. It was supposed to have a earlier release. One's got to come out at the beginning of every episode, I think. It's like I start moving around, I'm jostling my
move on.
It was supposed to come out earlier of that year of 2013, and they pushed it back. They actually apparently ended up doing like reshoots for this movie.
Oh, okay.
Which we'll kind of get into that with writers and stuff. But its ratings, 5.8 on IMDb, 50 tomato meter reading, and 44% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. So I was like, yeah.
Okay.
And like for like we're a box office like number 83, number 84. Box office wasn't really anything spectacular. But how many movies did you see for 2013?
30.
I beat you by 1.
31, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking at the list and I was just kind of like, I don't know. This wasn't my year for movies. There's a bunch of stuff that I was just like, oh yeah, I remember that coming out and I was uninterested in watching it.
It's like looking at it, I was like, I know a lot of these movies. Like I know this movie, but I just didn't watch it.
I just didn't care to watch it.
So really quick,
Like to this day, I still haven't seen Man of Steel.
which blows my mind.
I'm just so uninterested.
It's
so uninterested.
actually good.
I know. It didn't.
I know some people will be like, no, it's not. I'm like, yeah. Zack Snyder knew what he was doing.
I'm just so uninterested in it. I mean, it's because I'm not really a Superman guy. You know.
That's fair. So I just really quick before we get into director and writer, let's quickly call out the novelist, Stephen King.
This is a Stephen King one.
Yes. I don't know how many more Stephen Kings we would possibly do. I mean, who knows? But he has 347 writing credits on IMDb.
Yeah, I was trying to. Which ones have you actually read of Stephen King's novels?
I don't think I've actually read a Stephen King novel.
Really?
I'm not a huge book reader.
You never read The Shining?
No.
That's weird to me.
I actually didn't even know it was a Stephen King novel until way later after, because the first time I saw The Shining, I was like 14, and I just thought it was Stanley Kubrick. And then it wasn't until I was in high school.
Well, because then he'd take it and really make it like something else, you know?
Yeah. And then it wasn't until I was in high school and someone was like, no, that's a Stephen King novel. And then I realized that my mom owned a book. My mom had owned a bunch of Stephen King novels, but I just never. I wanted to read. I liked reading fantasy more. And then when I was a kid, I liked reading Goosebumps and Animorphs. But I don't know. By the time I got into like my teenage years, I kind of went through like a old literature phase. Like I wanted to read Bram Stoker's and I wanted to read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and blah 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 blah. I don't know. I don't know why I never got into reading Stephen King.
I was trying to go through the list and I could only think of 2 that I've actually read cover to cover.
Yeah, which ones?
Misery and Salem's Lot. Read those 2. I started the Dark Tower series.
That's a commitment.
That's a commitment. It's like reading the Vampire Chronicles.
Yeah.
There's a lot. And I think I started the first one and then I saw how many there were and I think I got overwhelmed with the idea. But if I was going to read a series, like commit to a series, I think the Dark Tower would be the one. But yeah, the guy's got a lot of books. I even bought on my trip to go see.
Well, yeah, sorry.
I was going to say, I bought some random Stephen King novel at the airport on my trip to go see my friends for their baby shower.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
I have no idea what it's called.
He has 347 IMDb writing credits. I don't know actually how many short stories or books he's actually written. Because if I remember correctly, at a certain point in his life, he kind of started having ghostwriters. Like, because he was publishing so much that he would just kind of create a premise to something and like then people would like write the structure and everything to it, and then he would go through and like make it his own. I think I've heard something about that, but I could be wrong with that.
Have we done a Stephen King?
No, we haven't. We just talked about him.
About him.
He is known as the King of Horror.
What is another like one you would do?
What do you mean?
What's another like film adaptation of Stephen King you would actually real quick, we can move on, but off the top of your head,
like I think Pet Sematary would be a fun one.
Dreamcatcher.
I always forget that's Stephen King.
That's why I would want to do that one, because it's kind of like weird.
Is it Thinner Stephen King too?
Thinner, I believe, is yes, the one where he gets cursed and no matter how much
thinner?
he
Yeah. Is Running Man Stephen King?
I don't know. Anyways, Carrie, the novel was published April 5th, 1974. So this is been around for a while.
It's been around for a while. And also, strangely enough, like the book, it takes place in like a 5-year future of 1974 in a strange way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I just thought that was like a interesting little like anecdote.
Well, it kind of goes into the like what's cool about the original like movie too is that it has that that Amityville horror, that 70s vibe, especially in film and horror, is a very cool aesthetic.
It can, or it can be really wah, wah. I like the original Amityville horror movie. I don't think is that
It didn't age great.
It doesn't age great. The Exorcist is terrifying as hell still. I feel like I actually also, just really quick, going into watching this, I've never seen the original movie.
You never seen the original Carrie?
I've never saw the original Carrie.
Huh. Did you know that when you were going into it, or was it when we were sitting there and you're like, you just know a bunch about it?
I just know the story of Carrie.
You're the person that I was warning in the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
It's like, but then that was kind of the thing of thinking about it, is like, well, it's already ruined for me. Like, I know the ending of Carrie, and that's what the entire movie is waiting for, that moment.
This entire movie is building up to the last 15 minutes. That's
pretty much what it is.
This entire movie is just kind of like a kind of a light thriller about this young girl and her abuse, and then it drastically turns into a horror movie.
It's like when you're boiling pasta and you're waiting for it to get to a certain boil, and then you look away from it and you look back, and now it's overflowing,
frothing,
and you don't know when or how it happened.
It's like, I was just here. But yeah.
But within this, really quick, I do want to actually just go over what the difference between a remake, reboot, and revival are. So this is a remake, because what they did is they took the concept of the book, the original movie, and they just kind of modernized it. It's like the beats are still there, but it's just a little bit different.
Yes.
A reboot is when you take like a franchise or a property and you create your own spin on it.
Okay.
So like even like last week, Friday the 13th, I would technically call that a remake still, because they're still following the beats and proper format of the early Friday the 13th movies of Jason Voorhees, his mother, and the camp counselor or the teenager and all that stuff. You know what I mean? Maybe that's not the camp. They're not doing the camp counselor stuff. So kind of remake, reboot-ish thing. But
is it kind of toting on the
yeah,
the
but I would say it's more remake because it's still following true to the OG Jason and Voorhees story and Camp Crystal Lake lore.
Okay.
Then a revival is kind of like what's happening through a lot of like modern. It's more of a sitcom, a show thing. So like they just like Roseanne, or which just recently turned into the Connors. That's a
I Met Your Father.
Kind of that's kind of more of a no. That's a spinoff.
You're adding one.
That thing that's in. Like, I'll send these tabs to you, but like no, spinoff is like what Frasier was from Cheers.
Okay.
Because Frasier Crane then ended up having his own show, Frasier, but it's from the Cheers reality. So How I Met Your Father is in the world of How I Met Your Mother, but its own show. A revival is taking an older property and
bringing it back.
The Halloween movies, they're a revival.
Oh,
these three new ones,
Kills,
Halloween Ends, and Halloween Kills, or Kills Ends. However, what is this? Like this, the third one's Halloween Ends, right?
Yes.
So yeah, those are a revival from the first two Halloween movies, because it's a continuation storyline of what happened with Jamie Lee Curtis's character, and they're forgetting what happened between
3 and...
Well, 3 doesn't even have Michael Myers in it.
8.
It's a 4, 5, 6, 7, I think 8, H2O and H2O Resurrections, whatever. There's Halloween 20 years later, and then one with Busta Rhymes, I want to say. I think it's Busta Rhymes is in one of them.
I don't know. I really don't know the franchise that well.
But yeah, so this is a remake.
Cool.
Cool story, bro. Go fuck myself. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, let's go into like who directed and wrote and screenplay and blah blah blah.
Yeah,
blah,
the production, behind the scenes stuff.
This was directed by Kimberly Pierce, who doesn't really have a lot, but a very strong presence. I would want to say, because she directed and did the screenplay for Boys Don't Cry.
Yeah, with
Hilary Swank.
Yeah, Hilary Swank.
Which now that would not be cast with Hilary Swank. That would actually be cast with a trans actor.
Yeah, well, and also, I mean, they did a lot of, not a lot, but they did TV, like a lot of directors.
Yeah, I kind of put it like TV here and there.
Yeah.
It's like they don't really. I looked up on their Wikipedia, and they don't really have. They just kind of like they have projects that they do, and I think they're just very picky and like.
Yeah, they pop up every couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah, good for an episode of this or an episode of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean,
big claim to fame is Boys Don't Cry.
Yeah, definitely. Stop Loss sounds interesting. I want to watch that.
What is that? Oh, I remember. I didn't know that. Okay, I remember this movie. No, yeah, no, I remember this movie coming out. I don't know why it stuck out to me. Oh, maybe it was because of the cast.
Channing Tatum, Ryan Phillippe, Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yeah, I was just like, oh, you're all in that together. Timothy Olyphant.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, there's just how do you say his name? Kieran
Culkin?
No. Kieran. Fucking, I never say his name. I wish I could just show you. We just need to get like a.
We need to actually get the thing up in here.
Yeah, so I can just show you what I'm talking about. He's an Irish actor, and I don't know. He was in Game of Thrones. He was the King of the North.
Kieran Hins?
The King Beyond the Wall.
Yeah, I know who you're talking. I actually don't know how to properly pronounce that name.
Yeah,
so.
I like him, but I can never say his name. Anyways.
Anywho,
it's Irish.
Yeah, that's Kimberly Pierce, and I think she did a good job with this movie. I do have some qualms with this movie, but we'll get into that when we get into reviews and whatnot. Because I was actually very uninterested watching it.
I think it's because you know the ending.
I think that is too. Yeah. I just wanted to let's skip to the good part.
Yeah, exactly.
I was surprised by the screenplay writers for this.
Why?
Because all right, I looked up and I got this. Roberto Aguirre Sacasa.
Good job.
I'm learning my Spanish. Because he, like this guy, he wrote the Spider-Man musical.
Oh, really? I didn't miss that one.
I looked more through his Wikipedia than on IMDb, actually. And he's a Marvel comic writer, and he wrote Stephen King's The Stand into a comic book series.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, he's for television. What we know probably people would recognize more is he was the creator and showrunner, I want to say, for Riverdale and the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina.
I saw that. Also, producer and director of a writer of episodes of Glee.
Yeah.
It was kind of like,
musical makes sense, you know.
Yeah.
I just find it like when I saw that because that Spider-Man musical is so bad.
You've seen it?
I've seen bits of it because there was when it came out, there was on YouTube for a long time someone's little phone recording of it, which I mean you're not gonna really get good justice for a musical in general for just a solid camcorder recorded of anything, but just dude, at the end of it there's someone dressed as Carnage, it literally looks like they just put a hodgepodge of Spider-Man villains on the stage and they're singing, and I was just sitting there what? And also just the history of the fucking musical as well.
Well, wasn't Roberto the first writer, and then they got into?
So yeah,
that's what I was reading.
Yeah, exactly. So Roberto, they brought him on because they wanted to. The reason why they wanted to remake Carrie is they wanted to do a more honest interpretation of the novel. Because in the novel, which I didn't realize this, I read the entire synopsis of the novel. She wrecks the town.
Yeah, no, she destroys everything.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
Holy shit. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And
no, she goes completely buck wild ape shit.
And so I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. So yeah, he wrote a screenplay. They shot that, but then they brought in Lawrence D. Cohen, who wrote the screenplay for the original Carrie movie, for reshoots.
And he just basically rewrote it into his other movie.
Yeah, that's what it's. I mean, because I don't know what the other two were different, but and also like Lawrence D. Cohen's other writing, big writing credit I noticed is he wrote the first part of the It TV series
with
TV movies
with
but
Tim Curry.
Yes,
Yeah,
I almost said Perry something.
Tim Curry is Pennywise, so the OG one, not.
So yeah, so this movie kind of had like an interesting journey of its like reshoots and
It kind of went into this weird backwards full circle.
Yeah,
like I could see it starting the other way where they're like, oh, we're just gonna redo Carrie, and then they're like, oh no, let's do.
Well, and then that's kind of a thing. It's like after reading the complete synopsis of the book, and then. I read the synopsis of the OG movie because I was like, oh, I haven't seen. Like, it was just such a weird thing. Me watching, I'm like, I've never seen it actually, and it is almost like they remade the movie and like the 70s movie, and then just added a little bit of stuff extra from the book, and then let's make it modern. Here's a cell phone. YouTube. Like and subscribe.
YouTube. We're on there. With our faces and stuff. Well, that's like, God, I hate to do this, and I'm going to do it, and I've done it before. This needs to be a series. If you're going to do Carrie and you want to do it the right way,
like a limited series?
Yeah,
like 4 episodes or something?
4 or 6 episodes. Last 2 is the destruction of the town. But you really...
Yeah. I want to see that so bad.
Because something that was also lacking in this, that like this is going to be such a weird thing to say out loud. There wasn't enough of the depiction of the abuse.
Yeah.
That is leading to her awakening in a sense.
Yes. So let's reel this conversation back a little bit, and to get through the starring.
Okay.
So then we get to the reviews, and then we can pick the fucking movie apart. Because, God.
To start off, we have two main.
Yes.
We have Juliana Moore as Margaret, who is Carrie's mother, and then Chloe Grace Moretz, which is Carrie. Moretz, sorry. You're right. I just wrote that completely wrong. So yeah, Moretz.
And it's not an O, it's a Moretz. I'm getting particular with the pronunciations.
I just thought of something. Do you remember that story I told you about a certain teacher that I once had that was doing roll call, and he asked that kid what his name was?
Oh, this sounds familiar.
And then he was like, "Oh no, it's pronounced this." And then okay.
I mean, like everybody has a story kind of like that.
It ended with no, not gonna.
But yeah, so Chloe Grace Moretz, she's probably most recognizable for like Let Me In, which I have not seen that remake. I kind of refuse to watch that remake because I like the original so much. I think
that's so weird. I really want you to just check it out because we're in different boats. I saw the American remake, and then I tried the original, and I just couldn't get through it. It's 2 hours of your life. It's spooky season, but it's interesting. Yeah, but she's in Let Me In, Amityville Horror, and this. She's in 3 remakes.
Yeah,
horror.
I didn't really think about that. And like Amityville Horror, she's a
baby in that. That's the one with Ryan Reynolds.
Ryan Reynolds.
Right? How do you do off the top of your head? Do you remember how that one was? I remember liking that one.
It's an all right remake. It's they kind of take a lot of liberty.
Yeah,
with it.
I remember that.
Because it's kind of more like a house out in the woods instead of being in suburbia.
Yeah.
Also, that's one of the few horror books that I have actually read that scared the living shit out of me.
Well, it's also a real house. That doesn't help.
Yeah, it's true.
You know what I mean? Like, it's an actual place. You also might recognize her as a Hit Girl from Kick-Ass.
Yeah, I think that's her next, or 500 Days of Summer. But I wanted to make a quick note of movie 43 that she's in, because like that movie, it's a like short story type thing, but she plays a girl who's like on like a awkward like like middle school date at like this boy's house, and she gets her period.
Oh, weird.
And she kind of doesn't fully like, she knows what's happening, but like she's just kind of panicking, and like the boy is panicking, and then his dad is there, and he's like, oh, we gotta plug it up.
Oh, I've seen that.
Yeah.
Is that what that's from?
Yes.
I've seen that before.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I thought was just kind of,
When did that movie come out? Before or after this?
Before, because she's like, it's like around the time that Kick-Ass, like a little bit after Kick-Ass.
And she was a baby in that too.
Yeah, like I want to say it's like she's still like maybe.
I mean, she's only
14.
She's only like 25.
Yeah. So, oh wait,
She's like born in 97 or something like that.
but this came out in 2013. Was she only like 16 filming this movie?
I guess so.
Whoa.
I mean, she's 20. Like she's like 25 now. She's only 25. That doesn't feel right.
No, but you're right, because I remember
Yeah.
seeing that.
I remember looking when I was looking her up. I saw
Yeah.
her. She was born in like 97, right?
Something like, no, but I remember seeing age 25. Man,
Wow.
she's done a lot
For her. Yeah, for being 25.
She's fucking good.
And she's been all over. She's been
Yeah.
a bunch of stuff. Well, because I always remember, I always like her. I was like,
yeah.
I remember, and she's one of those ones that like I see her name, I'm like, oh, I'm curious, like what she's gonna like be like in this.
I just got really interested in seeing the rest of her career.
Yeah, she's very young.
Yeah, I can't wait to see. Oh, dude, she's gonna win it. She better win an Oscar. I'm calling it right now. YouTube.
You like YouTube
I don't know why I'm going to.
because they control the Oscars. So yeah, that's
And Julianne Moore, her mother, most probably, I don't know. She's got actually a really
she's all over the place.
all over the place, because Hannibal, and then Boogie Nights, Big Lebowski,
Lost World, the second Jurassic Park.
Evolution.
That's a great movie. I watched that not too long ago. It's so stupid, but it's awesome.
Very recently, The Hunger Games. She's in the last two.
Mm-hmm.
She plays the leader of the free people. I don't
The
know.
Rebels.
Yeah. They don't want to use the word rebel or something. Yeah. No, she's there. Oh, that's right. You haven't seen it.
No,
That's right,
Well,
that's
yeah,
right.
so I was like, I didn't realize she was in that.
Yeah. And then
Yeah, she has 105, and they're
Yeah.
all very.
she's all over. Like, she plays comedy super well. Like, she's hilarious in Evolution. She's so fucking funny in The Big Lebowski. She's intense and a great Clarice in Hannibal. And
She's intense in this,
yeah, she's super
in a
intense in
really
this.
subtle way.
Yeah. Oh my god. The way that she just carries herself, like
Yeah.
especially like through what was that place called? The dry cleaner?
Yeah,
or
the
like,
dry cleaner.
Yeah, like that she's like doing altercations on people's
Oh,
like
and then-
clothes, and it's just like
And
she's
Chloe's fear of her, and she's like dead quiet. She's not saying anything. It's just
Yeah.
her presence is
Yeah.
causing fear. I was like,
and she's very manipulative.
yeah, she's a psycho. And then for
laugh at you.
and then supporting Judy Greer is in this as like kind of the teacher that is kind of trying to be an ally to Carrie
Yeah.
and like help her through this like
Yeah,
time. You would recognize her. She's in the newest Halloween's.
Yep. We've talked about her with the movie Cursed already.
Yeah, she was in Curse, 13 Going on 30. I just brought those up. She's in What Women Want because that came up with Bette Midler.
Yeah.
Yeah, randomly.
She's got a sad arc in that movie. Well,
Yeah, she does.
it becomes happy.
Yeah.
And then I definitely want to give a strange shout out to Ansel Elgort, or Ansel Elgort. Yeah.
Who plays Tommy, one of the popular boys. Baby Driver,
Yep.
Fault in Our Stars.
I've been watching the Divergent series now, and he's one of the main characters in that. So I was like, oh, Divergent series. We already talked about. Wait, no, I'm watching that. Wait, what? I'm starting to get like what I'm just casually watching for myself. It confused with what we've done for the podcast now.
Yeah, I mean, this is also his like debut too, which is kind of fun.
Was this his debut?
Yeah, this is like his first credited movie.
I thought Fault of the Stars.
This is the first one that came up on the list.
Oh, I was looking at it wrong. But also, it's really funny. He's in The Fault of Our Star, whatever the fuck that is called, with Shailene Woodley, and then also Shailene, and then plays they're then the brother and sister in Divergent series. So
really?
Yeah, they're like lovers in The Fault of Our Stars, and then, no, I'm your brother.
And then shout out just to Gabriella Wild, Sue. she's the popular girl.
Sue Snell, very important character in the story.
Yeah, and I didn't really recognize her from anything.
I mean, she's in Wonder Woman 84 and the Three Musketeers movie with the Land of Bloom. I was like, okay.
And then Portia, double. Man, I'm having a hard time today. Portia Doubleday plays Chris, who's like one of the main bullies. She was in Fantasy Island. She was in Mr. Robot for a while. I don't recognize her either.
I remember. Have you seen Fantasy Island?
No.
Okay.
I think I started it, but
yeah, that was Lucy Hale. Or yeah. Also, like, I have a vague memory of the movie Youth in Revolt.
I do too.
And I think
Michael Cera, right?
Yeah, I think it's more like I have this vague memory of it because I always wanted to watch it, but I never watched it. But I think I have watched it.
But you haven't.
I'm a watchman. No.
So those are our main. There's a bunch of other people in it, but those
Yeah.
are like our main, the ones we interact with the most.
Yeah.
I didn't write down Billy, did you?
No.
Okay.
I didn't really care to.
Okay. Billy's also it's Chris's boyfriend.
Oh, Billy!
Yeah, I thought that was funny. I'm like, Billy and Tommy. That's a very common horror movie.
Yeah.
But Tommy, I realized, like, you know, the rules. Tommy always dies, so.
No, he doesn't. Not in Friday the 13th.
Okay.
He's the hero.
That's Tommy dies. Not great.
It's a weird, like a very anticlimactic kind of way. Just like
No, but that's the whole thing about this movie. That's why it was actually really fitting.
yeah. Well, let's get into reviews.
Okay.
Tommy's Corner.
So Kevin C. Johnson. Oh yeah. So sorry, I jumped ahead.
Yeah.
Oh,
we forgot to have you do a synopsis, I think.
we did.
Do you want to share it now, just really quick?
Sure. An abused young woman begins getting telekinesis powers with a shocking and violent outcome.
Imagine that. That's
Anyways,
all right. I don't know. If that, fuck me, right?
I usually catch you. For reviews, 11 positive, 18 mixed, 5 negative. For my positive, I picked Kevin C. Johnson, St. Louis Post-Dispatch, an 88 out of 100. Long before the blood starts spilling, it's clear the new team has mostly nailed it. The reboot is good as a Carrie remake as possible. Though it's not truly a scary movie, the film takes time living up to its R rating.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Watching paint dry.
Yeah, basically. Let's see. For mixed, I got Mark Dining at Empire with a 60 out of 100. A remake that doesn't see the legacy of Carrie White burn in hell, but one that doesn't add much to it either.
Yeah.
That was kind of the way I felt more about it. It's
yeah.
like, this didn't destroy the Carrie to me, but it wasn't interesting. But that's the thing, is that's the risk you take. It's like if you do try to do something. Yeah. So, and then let's get down here. Who did I pick? Luminick at New York Post with a 25 out of 100. Hollywood's ongoing campaign to remake every horror movie of the 1970s and 80s has finally caught up with the Stephen King, Brian De Palma classic Carrie, and the results are distressingly anemic, pig blood and all.
Rough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, like this one, Ty Burr at Boston Globe. The new Carrie is a thoroughly dispiriting remake. Retread is the appropriate word that would have been directed by any proficient Hollywood hack. Like, damn.
Yeah, that's kind of a thing I was thinking about. It's like this movie. It's not a horrible remake, but the original is still like really good.
Well, I remember reading Stephen King.
What I've heard.
Well, Stephen King.
Oh no, he was kind of like, why?
Yeah, he's like, why would you remake it? The other one's like perfect. Like,
yeah. But
it's one of those. If it's an interesting concept too, because if you, like I was saying, like if you have no idea what the Carrie thing is, you know the premise and the ending, you could watch this one and still get that shock value because if you had no reference of the other one, because I remember seeing, like, I had this weird thing. I've watched the original one, and there was definitely moments where my
How
brain.
old were you when you watched the original?
I haven't seen it in years, but my brain was, some of the scenes are so similar. My brain was doing this weird melding thing.
Yeah.
Because I was remembering it from the original and then to this one, and that was weird. Like it was like, I don't know.
Do you have a memory of the 2002 TV?
I have a memory
remake?
of it.
Yeah, wasn't that kind of weird? Like that was an interesting. Like I was like, oh yeah, that happened. Why did that happen? That happened.
I mean, it has a really cool like cover to it.
It does.
Yeah, it's a really cool like.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of like. I mean, okay, so I feel like the original goal was to make a more accurate depiction that would be more honest to the book. You know, that was the original goal, which that makes sense. You know, you want to follow the source material more, and that's a reason to do a remake. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but especially for a book. Yeah,
If it's like this, like a book that's already been turned into a movie once, and it's kind of like a
twice.
Well,
This is the third time we've done this.
The Rage Carrie 2 might as well be another.
Oh yeah,
remake.
what is that about?
Literally, it's just like set in the future. Sue Snell is actually a character in it. I just did a quick little like read on like a synopsis. It seems like pretty much like because it alludes that there are other people that have these telekinetic powers, and it's a young girl getting bullied in high school, and then kills everybody at prom. It's literally the same story, but
they have the balls to call it a sequel.
yeah, it's like okay. But Sue Snell is in it, and apparently she's older, and she's like the warning for everyone. Like, this happened to me. Oh, crazy old Sue Snell over there.
They get attacked by a lamp.
God damn. But all right, I was on a thought, the train of thought there.
If you're gonna make something. If it makes sense to follow the book, yeah.
So like, something that had a source material. It's been made into a movie twice, but I feel like that 2002. Nice, god damn it, that 2000.
I had to like stop from spitting up my water over everything.
That 2002 is kind of more of a remake of the movie, not so much the book, because it's a TV movie. But then, so like, yeah, you're wanting to do the source material better. And it seems like they were going with that, and they kind of had a little bit more of that. Because of the end, like her destruction at the end of this, I feel is a little bit more. It's still not the entire town, but it feels more like
grand scale.
Yeah,
it's because it's pretty intense.
Yeah,
because I mean, at the end of the day, this becomes a revenge movie. That's what we're building up to.
Does the original movie end with the rocks coming out of the sky as well, or how does the original movie end?
If I remember correctly, she just destroys the house, like she.
Yeah. With her in it still.
Yeah, the rock thing is from the book, and I think that's what you're saying. There's these little pieces they brought in, because the rock thing is like and I was looking it up, as a totally different kind of psychic mental power, being able to make rocks.
Yeah, and that's also like a thing with like the rocks is like, which one thing I think that does the movie a little bit more justice than the book is this is kind of like all a metaphor of her period is kind of like the catalyst to this is what it feels like.
Well, it's like, her hitting puberty has awoken her powers in full force.
Yeah, because there's in the book when she was like 6 years old,
she had little things that she could do. You know?
But like this seems like in this one specifically, it seems like Carrie, like after she has her period at the very top of that's how this movie begins, is her having her first period in the shower, the girls' locker room shower.
Terrible.
And since she's been religiously abused her entire life, she has no knowledge that she's gonna menstruate.
And she was homeschooled.
Yeah, she was homeschooled for a majority of her life.
Yeah, so it's not like
so like she literally thinks she's dying.
Well, yeah, and even like
she thinks she's like she doesn't know what's happening.
Yeah,
to
no,
her.
she's just suddenly bleeding. Like, but it's always so funny to me in these like teenager movies. They start pelting her with plug it up and pelting her with tampons and stuff. I mean, I know kids can like especially like younger kids can be really brutal. I can't imagine that happening in my high school. I'm sure someone would, but I can't imagine 15. Because I was thinking about certain things that did happen in my high school.
There's some crazy shit like that happened in my high school.
Well, but it's like I remember certain things happening that were really like messed up, and I remember majority of the population being like, "The fuck," not like, "Yeah, get up," you know, like. I remember people being like, really, like, that's a really fucked up thing to do, bro. You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we're not getting the entire school's narrative. We're only getting a few people's perspective in this movie.
No, I know, but so the entire locker room of these upperclassmen girls are doing it, and they're all, and then it just spreads like wildfire throughout. And so Carrie's walking down the hallways, and everyone's snickering and pointing and stuff like that. And my high school just wasn't. No one fucking cared. I mean, from my perspective, you know.
I mean, maybe that's because it's a larger high school. You went to a very large high school.
Yeah, it wasn't small town.
Yeah, I
mean, it was. You know what I mean.
I mean, my high school is relatively like I knew pretty much everybody that was in my high school. You know, I could like look at them, recognize their face, probably know their name. So, like, I think, you know, like...
Yeah, that's true. Like, small town. Like, just the size of the high school.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
Well, even, I guess...
I mean, you would make a fair point with that, but
I guess
like,
also even just the environment you live in.
Yeah.
What kind of place,
you know? It's like... Because I could, like... I don't know. Some fucked up shit happened when I was in high school. And that's a kind of interesting thing. It's like, even though, yeah, this came out in 2013, they are taking this idea of, like, what... maybe bullying would have been like more in like the 70s. Like Stephen King is like, you know, writing at it from a very specific point in time. And now we're translating that into modern day.
Yeah.
And that's also another thing is like some of this just doesn't fully translate modern day, in my opinion. Like the whole like Sue Snell, like, Tommy, you should take her to the prom. Like, no.
Because I feel guilty. That was just also a weird...
It's like in a weird. It's like a writing like construction like construct. Sorry, a writing construct from a time where audiences would be feeling more forgiving for like sympathetic in a way. It's like, yeah, no, like at a time in the 70s where it's like, how nice of Sue Snell to let her boyfriend take this nice
when
Carrie.
It's really weird.
When it's really kind of like. Well, instead of just having your boy, like, why don't you go and talk to Carrie and become friends with her? And
apologize.
Invite her to prom with everybody as a fun group thing.
Yeah.
And then there we go. But it's still an antiquated idea that prom...
That's a fair point. That's a very good point.
It's still very much an antiquated idea of like prom is boy takes girl to dance for fun time.
Yeah. Well, it's like I really can't remember. Like that's what I was saying. It's not the original. I always thought Tommy was in on it. I thought Sue and Tommy were in on it on the whole prank at the end.
Really?
I really was really convinced about that, but I can't remember now.
Well, okay, that's an interesting thing because, and I'm glad that they actually took that out of this one, is her freak out at the end. In the original movie, she imagines everybody laughing at her. When what actually happens is everyone's stunned and they kind of maybe like chuckle a little bit with like the blood, but she blows it up more in her mind.
That's more interesting to me though.
I mean, that's fair, but what I find interesting is like how they keep it in a we don't change a perspective of like reality. Mm-hmm. We stay in the reality of everybody. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in this, it's more they utilize the filming of her in like they use the modern technology to make fun of her more in this. Like that's the breaking point. But
to keep it on that note real quick though, but to keep it in this idea of that. From her perspective, everyone's stunned, like, holy shit. But she's seeing everyone hysterically laughing. Mm-hmm. That gives you more of a concept, like a perception of where her mental stability is at from all the abuse that she's gotten from her mother.
She's like hearing from her mother, like, they're all going to laugh at you. Which also, I'm sorry, I say it like that because there's this old Adam Sandler CD that I used to listen to, and he makes like a Carrie joke in it, and like about the abusive mother, and like the way he's like, they're all gonna laugh at you.
Sounds like an Adam Sandler bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, because that was something that was kind of going to get into what I kind of got into earlier, is that there is a level of the abuse kind of, it feels really watered down to me.
Yeah.
In this, when it's like, it really.
Well, it's not even just like, it's like, I don't even, it's the way that Chloe Grace Moretz like portrays Carrie in this. Like, a lot of people like gave her praise. I don't really think she did a good job with like the end part of it, you know, like the freak out, and like she does a really good job of playing this very shy girl at school, and you know, very scared, very unsure of herself. But then you have these moments with her mom where I don't see the fear. Like what? Like I don't really see a lot of the fear that she has with her mom at the beginning. She's kind of like her mom's just beating her head on the wall, and she's like, "Mom, stop it, stop it! No, I want to be a teenager." It's like it turns into like it. There's something that I lost that insecure, shy Carrie, and like you could argue that it's like, oh well, it's with her mom, you know, maybe she has a little more comfortability of talking with her mom because of blah blah blah, but it's like her mom is abusive. It's Stockholm syndrome. The only times I see her get scared is when she's like, I'm gonna put you in the closet now, you know, all right, Harry Potter, let's do this.
I wrote that Harry Potter closet.
But yeah, and then once she actually does start like discovering her powers and whatnot, like. And then, like, I don't know. Like,
well, that's the thing.
And then at the very end, it's like, you have these powers. Why are you letting your mom stab you?
Well, that's what's like a weird thing about it, too. It was another one of those instances where it felt like there was stuff that was leading up to stuff that never happened. Like, Carrie gets her hands on all these witch books, magic spells, and telekinesis, and yada, yada, yada. And it's like you're waiting for the mom to catch it and then do something terrible to her for having this witchcraft in their house. That's like in a metaphor that's like having Chekhov's gun, but you don't use the gun. Mm-hmm. Like all that it's doing is setting up that she's learning how to do all of this stuff. And like, but that's where, I think the magic of this movie, this story in general, is when the pig's blood falls on her and she loses her shit and she murders everyone. Well, that's the thing,
because
too.
Like that's what makes this like a scary movie or a scary story.
It's like a thriller, kind of like like I was saying, it's a light thriller in the beginning, and then suddenly turns into a bloody mess horror movie. And like in the end, it's kind of interesting too. I was thinking about how much other stuff has taken the DNA of Carrie that I hadn't realized. Mm-hmm. Brightburn, very much the end of that. Chronicle, very Carrie. Didn't realize that. You know, the loaded gun thing. Like,
I started thinking of Akira.
Huh? Oh yeah. I mean, that's like it's just kind of interesting too, because also with the whole ending, and maybe that's what I'm talking about with like the because what happens to Carrie at school is really like really horrific for a young lady going through her first terrifying period because she has no idea what's going on. Yeah, but it was then she goes on her rampage, and there's moments you're like, yeah, get her. And then there's other ones where you're like, why are you killing the cute little photography dude? He didn't do nothing to you. Yeah. He was actually nice to you. Like he showed you how to like make a
full screen.
Look at that. Cool. He was like nice, and you fucking impale him with a table, And I think that's what... And
like crushing, like literally everybody that, except for like the girls that she like has trampede, that gets like...
Trampled, the twins.
Yeah, the twins trampled, whatnot. A lot of the people that are getting killed in that, it's like, they really didn't do anything wrong.
Well, the guy that gets crushed is the boyfriend of one of the girls that was planning it, and he knew about it. He's the one that swapped out the ballots. So they would win prom king and prom queen. So like, well, the thing is like the ones that they really show you her killing or being are the bullies, but there's a lot of other collateral going around because of what she's doing, It's like
what's interesting is like for this remake, like I think there is a thing to kind of think about. Is like maybe it's not. I mean, it's as a movie, it's like yeah, whatever. It's not that good of a remake. Or it's a fine remake. It does what its service, kind of like Friday 13th last week, but now it's more attainable to a younger audience.
Well, I was gonna say because also I could totally that's what I was saying. Even watch this one because jumping back to 1976,
8,
78,
yeah,
76,
whatever.
okay, the 1970s. Jumping back to the 1970s version for some people, especially if you haven't really if you're really not used to that style and that era, that might be really rough to go back and watch
the
that.
Acting's kind of rough in the 70s as well. It's not as refined on camera yet. You got very few films where I feel like acting is as believable, unless you're like watching The Godfather, or like a Steven Spielberg movie. The acting in like a lot of these horror movies, it's very much like, well, gee, Sue, I don't want to take her to prom.
yeah. Billy, and also like in the 70s too. Like there's some, they're sometimes really cool, but sometimes the effects are just kind of like,
yeah. And that was like one of the best parts of this remake is when she snaps and the blood comes off of her body, and then she just kind of slowly moves, and her eyes start vibrating in a weird cool way. I was like, no, I actually was like, I'm interested now.
it's the Phoenix. It's the Dark Phoenix.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's kind of what I always thought was fun about this one too, is that the original really felt like supernatural to me. This really felt like superpowers, and a lot of Stephen King's stuff really kind of ties that line in between supernatural.
It's like it's writing them together. Yeah.
Yeah, like he has a really interesting, just the concepts alone has a really kind of interweaving of the ideas of supernatural and genetic.
Yeah,
because there's fan theories of who Carrie's father is. It's a so-and-so Flag, whatever his name was, and he's like a reoccurring character in a lot of Stephen King's books.
Oh, interesting.
Who's like a kinetic.
Oh, like from Firestarter?
Yeah, like that kind of thing. What was his name? Yeah, and I was looking him up. He's been in a bunch of just give me one sec.
That's Stephen King too, right?
Firestarter?
Yeah.
Oh, Randall Flagg. Randall Flagg is just this reoccurring character in 9 of Stephen King's novels and various adaptations. And yeah, there's an idea that might be the father of Carrie because his powers are very...
Yeah.
But I was also thinking about how cool, because I just watched Dr. Sleep not too long ago, which is the sequel to The Shining, which was very good.
I still need to watch. I fall asleep every time I try to watch it.
That was so good.
Dr. Sleep is really good at putting me to sleep, man.
It's slow, but once the ball gets rolling, it's really good. But I was kind of thinking, how cool would it be to make a King universe?
I mean, it kind of is.
But more.
Oh, you mean in a cinematic way?
Yeah, in a cinematic way.
No, I'm over it. No.
Why?
No more universes.
There's so many things. Oh, come on! You wouldn't want a horror Stephen King universe.
I'm over it. Let's try something new. It was lightning in a bottle with the MCU. We're never gonna get it again. Let's get original, please.
Good luck with that.
I know. We're good. It's 53. I
mean, I had a question for you though.
Okay.
And just in your opinion, I kind of feel like, and again, maybe it's just because we knew what was gonna happen. But that whole scene with them getting the pig's blood and then setting up the trap and all that kind of stuff, I felt that was way too
lax.
That, but also it was just way too you know what they're gonna do. There was no mystery about, because even let's say you don't know what happens to Carrie, they get the pig blood, you see them fucking with a bucket, you know they're gonna dump blood on her. It's wouldn't you want that to be a little bit more of a mystery of what they're gonna do to Carrie, so you as the audience member are more shocked that suddenly blood.
I mean, I think what's kind of rough is us with the knowledge of what's going to happen. That suspense is now gone. Because then what it turns into if you haven't watched this, you're like, oh, they're gonna do that. Oh, I don't want to see that. Oh no. I don't want it.
That's what I'm saying though.
It's it's gonna happen, but it's one of those things where it's you're watching oh, that's gonna be a car wreck. I really don't. A train wreck, and you're like, I can't really look away.
Yeah, but I get that. But I just feel like it'd be more interesting if you're sitting there as an audience, almost like you're in the prom. And you're like, oh, good for her. Like, look at it. She's got her flowers. She's smiling. She's happy. I also thought the interesting, I was trying to figure.
I mean, if anything, like a little bit, like don't have it be so overtly presented. Don't like just fly like, oh yeah, they just murdered that pig. You know, don't.
Now they're
like,
setting up a bucket above the stage. That's what I'm saying.
you know,
There's
like,
no mystery to it.
Have there be more subtlety, like have it like happening in the background, or I don't know, but that kind of like then you don't have a really like solid story for Chris. Like Chris just then becomes a villain for a villain's sake.
Well, no, but I mean, like, you show him kill the pig. You don't show him get the blood. So you're like, what the fuck did they kill that pig for? Then you show him breaking into prom, and you see them kind of scurrying around the background.
I see what you're saying. It's that's a really hard line to like kind of navigate. And also, but I mean, also we got to think it's like they're trying to do a more honest take on the book, and maybe that was more stuff that was in the book, like because Billy's like his band of everybody, they're all greasers in the book. Mm-hmm. Which I think is funny. Greasers in the 70s. Like it's a very 50s thing, but
well, I also thought the blood was interesting.
What do you mean?
Because blood is such a huge theme of this movie, but it's like the first imagery is the period, the menstrual blood, which in itself is just an instant, natural like part of life, and you know that's how it happens. And then
but it's also it's a change. It's a thing that can never be, you can never you can never come back from it.
Yeah.
You know
yeah, but then it's like, and then you have the pig's blood, which is kind of interesting because you have the natural kind of like change of just what happens, and then that's the first moment of violence, but it's not human blood, it is pig blood.
Yeah.
And then that transfers now to a lot of blood, and it's
now
all violent human blood. Yeah, I just thought it was kind of an interesting, like,
except for the self-harm that Julianne Moore's character has here and there.
Yeah, but it's like, but I mean, like, the flowing of blood was like is a thing, you know. I just thought it was interesting. It was like, oh, innocent human blood just from natural, and then it was a violent animal blood that led to. Yeah. I don't know. I was trying to find like some kind of theme in there.
I mean, you found it already. So. The theme itself is blood.
Yeah.
You know, and just like how it's like when Carrie has her first period, she will no longer be the same person, and she's changed forever. And now, once these people have covered her in pig's blood, she goes off the rails, and now and then they will never be the same again.
Oh yeah, in the original too, Sue has a dream, and Carrot's hand pops out of the rebel. The thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
I had one more thought about like
I did love the principal.
A remake.
He couldn't say.
I love a fumbling older guy
that can't say period,
tampon. Or just that can't handle like women's problems. Like fucking in Mean Girls when he's like when he's got all the girls and he's like, does anybody want to like admit something or like say something? And one of the girls like. Says something about her period and being a heavy flow, and like
it's not my fault I have a heavy flow.
And he's like, I can't do this.
It's such a fun like.
It's a very true thing. It's just like
it's true, and some guys really can't.
Yeah, no. It's like if I had a daughter or something, like I would like as Chad Daniels, you know, like I would do my best.
Oh, and he bought everything
to be there for her, be ready for it. But at a certain point, I'd be like, I need to call. Do you have a female teacher that you can talk to? I don't know how much more. I don't know. I just don't know. Yeah, I forget I forget where I was at with a remake, modern day. I mean, let's just get into the rating. I'm actually surprised how much of a conversation we've had about it, because I was so wholeheartedly uninterested.
I'd say 3 out of 5. Like, okay.
I get a 2.5.
I think I give it 3 out of 5 carrots just because it's like, it's okay. Like on it really.
I think this is exactly on par with like how Friday the 13th was.
I think it's better than that, honestly. I found it more interesting.
That's fair. I mean, they both have antiquated, stupid things.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's really just, I guess, just your personal
Yeah.
preference on what you like. This is way much more my kind of horror movie than Friday the 13th. I honestly ever has been.
Yeah, I mean, you're not a slasher film guy, and I'm a slasher film guy.
I mean, I am. I mean, but it's also like in particular, like I like the first Scream. After that, they kind of get. I like the first.
Yeah, but
Of stuff.
Yeah, but like saying I like Scream as a slasher film is kind of like that's like the best slasher film.
I like Halloween.
You know, and that's like one of the best slasher films. And so like,
Yeah. Well, why can't I say I like slasher films?
Because it's like if it's like, oh, I like Halloween, I like Scream. It's like, okay, do you like slasher films? No, because like you don't like Friday the 13th. You don't like Child's Play. You don't like Urban Legends.
I just think Child's Play is stupid. It's a doll like that big. Punt the little bitch. Sorry.
The way that it sets up in the movie is a lot different than that. And also they do punt the motherfucker.
I know. I'm sure they do.
Because it's like, oh, look at this doll. That's not going to do anything. All of a sudden he has a knife and he's stabbing you. Like, what the fuck just happened? How am I dead?
Don't they put him in an oven at a certain point?
They put him in the fireplace.
And
he comes back after that still.
he's all burnt and shit.
Yeah.
See,
That's terrifying, man. He's unrelenting. But yeah, I would give this like a 2.5. Like, it's meh.
It's okay.
But what's interesting is, like, I don't know, like, if the original wasn't there, I would give this like, a fucking.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You got to remove
4.
that. You got to remove yourself from that.
Well, but I can't because it's a remake. Like, because like even still, like, well, I guess like since they're remaking, there's too much of like they didn't update the modernness of it enough.
I mean, I still think that this is one of those. This needs to be a series. Like,
I mean, yeah, but even still, like what they need to take out, they need to restructure the whole Sue Snell getting Tommy to take her to prom. Like that's an antiquated old like this that whole
you're saying
story,
for it to be in 2013, that should have been changed.
Yeah, and for it to, if it was to be in 2022, that 100% needs to be changed. The structure, especially like the societal structure of what prom is recognized as now, is very different than what it was in the 70s.
I just think also there's been like movies turned into like an example like Bates Motel.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't particularly think that needed to happen.
But that's a prequel, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like how they get the hotel and everything.
Yeah.
But I didn't think that I watched that and I didn't really think that needed. I watched like the first season and I was like, I don't care. And then they also did Ratchet, right? Nurse Ratchet. She had a prequel series.
This is what it is for this movie. The scary thing about the story of Carrie isn't how she murders everybody at the end. It's the abuse that she's going through.
Well, yeah.
And you kind of brought this up. You mentioned this. You mentioned this. And I think that's what it is. If they leaned more into like the tension of the abuse from her mother and her fear of being around her peers at school, you lean into that. That you give me that, I give this a higher than a 2.5.
And I think that's what it was missing.
Yeah. That's 100% what this Carrie was missing.
And I think that if they were to do like they did with Salem's Lot and it, if they just did like a 3-4 part series and really, really expanded on what makes Carrie finally break into this quote, I guess you can say monster from her peers, because she's massacring things.
Dude, when she starts to float through the fucking gymnasium, I was like, oh, God, that's my favorite sequence. Like I was like, for when it comes to horror movie like sequences, I have like a little bit like the twins getting trampled. I thought kind of looked a little hokey.
That felt like a Final Destination hokey kind of like thing. How
the bucket falls on Tommy and he's falls over and it's like, I'm like, oh, he just got knocked out. He's not dead.
That's what I was just gonna say. I was like, he might just be concussed, and then you just set him on fire. Like,
but then like as she like goes to him like, and he's just lying there with his eyes open, and there's a pool of blood. I was like,
but you just got dumped with blood.
I was like, wait, is he actually like dead?
Is he actually dead?
Yeah, like this. Like, how heavy is that bucket? It's a metal bucket.
I mean,
like,
it could.
I mean, what is that metal bucket? 50 pounds?
I mean, it could, depending on how it hit you, it could kill you.
Yeah,
but
it's very unlike. we needed more confirmation. But that's also very harkening back to the original, where when it does hit Tommy, that's actually, they did a really good like homage shot from that. Like in the 70s, boom, hit in the head. She looks down. She's like, oh, he is like, there's blood on him. His eyes are open. Like in the 70s, you do a quick shot, kind of like, because like it's a lot more like fast camera editing, in the 70s. Like that's how they were able to build that tension. It's believable. In 1976, you see that, you're like, he's dead, because audiences are still like, they're not as in they weren't as intelligent as we are now today.
Whoa.
That's I don't mean it in a negative way. It's like we now have we have evolved as film watchers. Don't make me the bad guy.
You just called everyone stupid from the 70s, but not in a negative way.
We've evolved as film goers. It's a different thing. It's a different time.
No, just
the interpretation of media is very different then. There are theories. There's not theories. There's research about this.
These ring lights are making me see spots.
We need to fucking wrap this up. But yeah, no. It's definitely. Yeah, they just needed to they need to lean into the abuse more.
It's just like Stephen King said, like if you're gonna touch the Carrie franchise again, do a series. Really?
Did he say that?
Well, he said no, like about like why remake it?
Yeah, he's like, oh yeah. He's
from
like,
the original, like why?
Like,
why?
What is the point?
What's the point of that?
And that's like, but like he asked the right questions. Like, what is the point? Like,
what are you gonna say different?
Yeah, what are you gonna pull out of the source material that that's new and fresh? But he actually wrecked the town.
Well, yeah, and that's like such a huge like thing.
Because in the book, it's like she's not only wrecking the entire town, but she's telepathically
communicating with people,
to everybody in the town, telling them because of you, you deserve this type thing. Like,
yeah,
they're just, and nobody's like, what the fuck is happening?
And that would be like an interesting psychological thing to watch all the abuse to the breaking point, and then basically see this poor defenseless young woman now turn into this.
Yeah.
And just to really, not to justify it, but to explain it would be very interesting, like to watch and to watch that rise, and then yeah, like I think that'd be really cool. But if you're not going to do that, then don't just leave the property alone. Now.
Yeah,
don't touch it. Like,
yeah. Or in 40 years, remake it for a modern audience again. Just shot for shot, whatever.
Or put it back in the 70s.
Yeah,
in 40 years.
In 40 years, put it back. All right, guys, we're going back in 100 years.
That'd be crazy.
Oh my god, that's actually weird to think about. Like a movie that would be 100 years ago today would be like from 1922. So like that feels like it's a period piece.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Could you imagine like in the next
existential crisis in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Oh fuck. Okay, I say 2.5. You say 3.
It's okay. Let's just mean like so we give it 2.5 out of 5 carrots. Yeah. So it's okay. It's whatever.
And
I think it's
if
better.
You haven't watched it and you're listening to this still, well, I hope you would enjoy it if you watched it. Like
there's something else I like about it. I liked also it was crisp.
Yeah,
it was a crisp movie. It looked like nice.
Yeah, it looks like a new movie.
Yeah, it looks nice.
I mean, I guess if anything, I would recommend to watch it for Julianne Moore's performance because she's fucking amazing in it. She's terrifying and uncomfortable.
She's a very uncomfortable to watch. I felt like she was kind of subdued, like we were saying, kind of just in general about the abuse. But yeah, she was very subdued in it in a really like uncomfortable way.
Yeah,
like, me.
No, that whole scene with Mrs. Snell and the dry cleaners.
Oh yeah, and she's doing her thing.
Yeah, she's like abusing herself. Like, well, dude, the beginning fucking scene where she almost fucking stabs a baby.
Oh, that was actually kind of an interesting thing too. It's like it almost seemed like she didn't know she was pregnant.
Yeah,
and then you find out that her and her father had a moment of, not her father, her husband, the father, had a moment of weakness, and they prayed on their knees for God to give them strength. And and then even when she gets her first period, now that she's a woman, she is the sin of man. Yeah. It was just like, It was just she was really uncomfortable in it.
Yeah, and they could have gone a lot farther with it, and they should have.
Yeah.
Shame on you.
But
Maybe that was in the original. We don't know.
yeah.
All right. Yeah, we need to wrap this up. I don't want these to get too much longer.
Cool.
So.
All right. Well, so join us next week. We don't know what we're doing yet, but
Oh, yeah, we need to figure that out. Friendship.
Follow us on Instagram, Spotify, Apple, everything.
That was a noise you just made. Yeah, like and subscribe YouTube. I already said that earlier. Yeah, get us on Patreon. Oh, well, we need to restructure our Patreon.
Yeah, don't
We'll
worry
figure
about
that out. We'll figure that out.
Don't worry about that.
Thanks, you guys, for listening.
This is Tommy.
This is Jake.
This is Tommy and Jacob's Mixtape.
The camera. Bye.
I caught it.
I miss you.